Sugar detriment. We're going to talk about 14 different ways that sugar can basically destroy your health. A lot of people talk about how sugar is unhealthy, but nobody really ever talks about why sugar is unhealthy. And so I hope that when you walk away from the show tonight, you're gonna take away these kind of big pearls to help you kind of keep your diet dialed in and away from that sugar. So again, sugar detriment is what we're talking about tonight. So number one on the list is immune suppression. And you've heard people talk about the link between sugar and cancer, and this is one of the issues. But early research done in the 1970s, and a lot of the really great research on sugar, a lot of that was done in the 70s, is actually before Harvard scientists were paid off to talk about how sugar really wasn't bad for you. There was a lot of really great research, and then we had this 2 to 3 decades of kind of diversion onto fat. So what happened is the sugar industry, this is actually recently written about and has been talked about in major media and news, that the sugar industry actually paid off some scientists to kind of distract the world from the health detriments of sugar. But immune suppression, there have been some studies that show that a bolus of sugar. Now, let's define a few things here too, because before we just kind of demonize sugar, let's kind of preface this by talking about what I mean by sugar. This is added sugars. We're not talking about the natural sugars found in things like a piece of fruit or vegetables or the things. These are added sugars. So when you flip over and look at that food label, these are your processed foods that have added sugars, things like sucrose or dextrose or treacle or invert sugar or maltose or the high fructose corn syrup or fructose or maltodextrin. Like, these are some of the names that you might see on a food label that is indicative of added sugars. And again, added sugars is not the same thing as natural sugars that are found naturally in food. So when we talk about the detriment of sugar, we're really focusing in on when food manufacturers process foods and add sugars into them. So like your common examples would be packaged snacks. Even lunch meats have added sugar. Cured meats can have added sugar. Of course, candy is a no-brainer, hopefully, for anybody tuning in tonight. Candy is definitely or should be a no-brainer. But we talk about adding sugar to food to make it taste sweeter. And so one of the side effects to this is immune suppression. Now, immune suppression of the neutrophils, which are types of white blood cells that help defend your body, right? And so some research shows that up to 5 hours after an added sugar bolus, neutrophils become lazy and not as responsive. So in essence, if you're eating sugar periodically throughout the day, as many people do, many people drink a soda 2 or 3 times a day, every 5 hours or so, or have a piece of candy every few hours, what you're doing repetitively is suppressing neutrophil response, which again, over time is going to lead to that immune suppression. And so it's not a one-day issue or a one-time issue that we're concerned about. But if you're repetitively doing this over and over and over again, that immunosuppression is going to lead to a weakened immune system. And again, when we're suppressing the immune system, we become susceptible to things like colds and flus. We become susceptible to immune types of diseases. And of course, that actually is on our list today, which is increasing your risk for cancer. And we'll talk about more of that in just a minute. Now, number 2 on the list is contribution to fatty liver disease. Now, this is very important because fatty liver, and specifically the type of liver damage that is non-alcoholic or non-drug induced, because a lot of people have a fatty liver because they're on multiple medications and the drugs are having to be processed by the liver, so it's overwhelming the liver. A lot of people have a fatty liver as a result of aggressive alcohol consumption. So we're not talking about like drug-induced fatty liver disease as much as we're talking about sugar, right? Sugar contributes to fatty liver disease. And some sugars more so than others. So like in this example here, if we're talking about the primary sugar, it's fructose. Fructose contributes to fatty liver. It's very difficult for the liver to process fructose. And most foods today, most sugars today are actually from high fructose corn syrup. So concentrated fructose is what most people are when they're drinking sweetened beverages, when they're eating sweetened foods. The vast majority of the sugar, at least in the US, and this may be different overseas if you live in the UK or if you live in Australia or if you live in Europe, a lot of overseas still uses cane sugar, which is a sucrose and not a fructose, which is a little bit easier on the liver. But if you're getting your sugar predominantly from fructose, it can contribute to fatty liver disease. Now, the problem with that, when the liver becomes fatty, we get toxic buildup. And so then we end up in this chronic state of having to detox repetitively. And so many people have this problem where they're always trying to, we're coming up on the new year and everybody's going to be doing their New Year's resolutions. Well, they want to do a detox, right? Well, what do we detox from? Well, sugar is one of the things that a lot of people will attempt to detox from. And if you eat and drink enough sugar to create a fatty liver, it's going to make it harder for your liver to constantly work and help you on a daily basis. So toxic buildup is one of those things that can occur as a result of chronic sugar exposure. Okay, so let's move to number 3 on the list of detriments. And so one of the things that we know sugar can do is it accelerates aging. And this has actually been really well studied. Sugar accelerates the aging process. So if you want to get older faster, hopefully I'm appealing to anyone's vanity. If you want to get older faster, eat more sugar. Very, very simply put. Sugar not only can it accelerate the aging process through creating what's called an advanced glycation end product, so an AGE. If you've ever heard this term, AGE, that's what that age, it's the acronym is on purpose, right? Advanced glycation end product. What that is, you probably heard me talk about this before. It's when you eat too much sugar, it creates an antioxidant or a free radical type of reaction in your body that basically creates damage to the proteins and the other elements in your bloodstream. And it leads to the production of these compounds called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. Think of it kind of simplistically like this. Too much sugar in your bloodstream makes your proteins and your hormones that float around in your blood, makes them sticky and thick and changes the way those proteins are folded, leading to damaged proteins that don't work as well. And these proteins are important. Why? Because they deliver vitamins, they deliver nutrients to your tissues, they deliver very important amino acids and other elements that helps your body heal and repair itself. So if your bloodstream is bogged down by sugar and bogged down by advanced glycation end products, you're not going to heal as quickly, you're not going to repair as quickly, and you're going to basically accelerate the aging process through accelerated damage to your tissues and damage to your DNA. Okay. Additionally, there's other research that shows that sugar can actually impair the memory. So sugar can cause memory issues. And it's now being linked to dementia. Any of you who have followed me for any length of time have maybe heard me say that, there's a new name for dementia, and it's type 3 diabetes. And we all know that sugar can cause diabetes. It's actually one of our items on the list here. But it can cause memory dysfunction by creating the same these same advanced glycation end products. It can create them in your brain, and it can actually hinder creating inflammation of the brain and can hinder the way your neurons fire and communicate to each other. So we don't want excessive sugar if we want a good memory. If you want good, sharp mental clarity and good, sharp mental focus, avoid or ditch the sugar, and you'll have better clarity, better focus. Additionally, number 5, sugar creates oral inflammation. Now, you all know, you all grew up going to the dentist, most likely, if you live in an industrialized country, that is. And you've all heard the old, sugar causes cavities, and it does. Sugar is notorious for feeding the wrong types of bacteria in the mouth that produce acid and other chemicals that erode away the enamel on the teeth, leading to the contribution of caries, dental caries or cavities. So this has been known for a very, very long time, but what's a little maybe less known, aside from the cavities component, is sugar can cause inflammation of the gums. So the gum line itself can become inflamed as a result of sugar exposure, making the collagen in your gums weaker, making you more at risk or susceptible to losing your teeth. Now, why is that so important? Aside from vanity, right? We don't want to have like missing teeth, but our teeth are designed to chew our food, right? And so if we're trying to optimize our nutrition, if we're trying to really be solid with our vitamins and our minerals and extrapolating the nutrients from the food that we're eating, we need our teeth to do that. And dentures don't work as well. Any of you who've ever had like false teeth, you could vouch for this, is that they don't work as well as your regular teeth. So when you start losing teeth, you start losing your capacity to get to the nutrition from your food, and that can create a host of different types of problems around getting repair. Remember, you need these vitamins, you need these minerals to help you heal and repair. You need these vitamins and minerals to generate energy. You need these vitamins and minerals to protect you from the environment, to boost your immune system, to repair your skin, to heal your gut. Like, vitamins and minerals are the molecular workhorses of the body. So if you destroy your oral health as a result of overconsumption of sugar, you're going to destroy your capacity at getting nutrients from the food that you eat, because you won't be able to chew effectively. And that brings us to number 6, which is it causes vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies in several different ways. Okay, so number 1, it's been shown in a number of research studies that people that have high levels of sugar in their diet, actually, it causes a depletion of minerals and B vitamins. Remember, for every molecule of sugar that you consume, sugar is an empty calorie, okay? And if we're really trying to understand why we shouldn't eat empty calories, you have to understand that for every calorie you consume, your body has to have B vitamins and minerals like chromium and magnesium and zinc and selenium. In order to break those sugar molecules down and to get the energy from them, you need the nutrients. So if you're eating an empty calorie that doesn't contain the nutrients but does contain the calorie, then where does your body get the nutrients to break that calorie down and generate energy from it? From you, right? It gets it from your storage. So it actually steals from you to process the empty calories of sugar, so that you can try to drive some semblance of energy production from that sugar that you just ate. And so if you do this chronically, repetitively, day in, day out, what ends up happening is you become malnourished. And this has been really well studied. There are hundreds of research studies that show that sugar consumption can contribute to vitamin and mineral deficiency or loss, or accelerated excretion or accelerated use. So if you want your nutrition status to be terrible, eat more sugar. Okay. Now, so that's number 6. Let's move on to number 7 on our list. And we talked about immune suppression. Let's put 7 down here. Sugar increases the risk for cancers. There have been a number of major studies, especially here recently. There's more light that's been being shown on this area in research. And so there are a number of different types of cancers that we know sugar can increase your risk for. So again, look at the number. It's arguably the number 1 or number 2 cause of death, at least in the United States, is cancer, right? We get about 1 million people every year that die from cancer, that don't need to die from cancer. Yet, I was a couple of years ago, I was at one of these fun runs. It was a breast cancer awareness run. And so what they were selling at the event was appalling to me. There was actually this little stand where they were trying to raise money for cancer awareness. And what were they selling? They were selling Coca-Cola, and they were selling donuts. So like, here everybody's trying to come together to raise awareness for cancer. And the thing that they're feeding the people at this event and selling to these people at this event are both loaded with sugar, both known to contribute, Coke and donuts, to contribute to the increased risk for cancer. So very, very bad idea. We don't, obviously, we know that sugar feeds cancer cells, but we also know now that, sugar suppresses neutrophils, suppresses immune function, and can lead to cancer becoming more stronger, or having the capacity to grow and basically put you at jeopardy or put you at risk. So if you don't want cancer, avoid sugar. Okay, type 2 diabetes. Now, it's called sugar diabetes for a reason, right? And this should not be like a news flash for any of you, but sugar causes diabetes, and we're talking about type 2. So any of you that with insulin dependent, just calm down. Don't go crazy on me. Type 2 diabetes is a known factor, sugar is a known causative agent. It's causative, meaning that, we've talked about diabetes in the past. This is a disease of choice. Type 2 diabetes is 100% a disease of choice. You have the choice to not have it, and if you do have it, you have the choice to put it in remission, but you have to change your diet. It's whether or not you're going to be willing to choose to change what you eat. But sugar creates type 2 diabetes, and there's no doubt about it. The research on this is very, very clear. Additionally, we know that sugar increases the risk for heart disease. For cardiovascular disease, we'll just include not just the heart, but also the blood vessels. So cardiovascular disease, it definitely increases the risk for developing cardiovascular disease in part. And some of these have overlap because when you eat sugar, it creates advanced glycation end products that create inflammatory processes in your blood vessels, including your heart. And it's, remember, I've talked about this before, when you have a blood vessel, okay, blood's flowing this way, and you get damage to the lining of the blood vessel, to that endothelial lining of the blood vessel. Let me make that a tube. Okay. What happens? This is inflammation, right? Well, what causes the inflammation? Doctors always talk about your disease is inflammation caused. What causes the inflammation? Well, we know these advanced glycation end products can contribute to an inflammatory process leading to that vascular endothelial lining damage, increasing the risk for the development of heart disease, but also of plaque formation, atherosclerotic plaque formation. So make no bones about it. This is being studied. We also know sugar, on a side note, increased sugar, and we're talking about added sugars here, increased risk of high blood pressure. So, technically high blood pressure or hypertension is different than cardiovascular disease. Hypertension is actually one of the risk factors for cardiovascular disease, right? So if sugar can elevate your blood pressure, obviously it's going to increase your risk for cardiovascular disease. Sugar can also increase your triglycerides. And so these are good markers to, you should be monitoring your blood pressure. You should be monitoring your triglycerides at least on an annual basis with your doc. And so sugar, remember what triglycerides are. It's fat in the bloodstream. So if you overconsume sugar, your body naturally converts that sugar into triglycerides and then stores it as fat. And if you become overwhelmed with sugar, it will store those triglycerides in your liver. And as we were talking about earlier, where did it go? Fatty liver number 2. Okay, so if you're looking at where should your triglycerides be, less than 75. So if you're getting them measured, shoot for less than 75. If your triglycerides stay under 75, you're going to do a great thing at keeping, at keeping your risk for heart disease at bay as a result of overconsumption of sugar, because fat really doesn't elevate your triglycerides to any great extent. It's actually sugar that does the bulk of elevating your triglycerides, which brings us to number 10, because now we see overlap in one more thing. So those triglycerides increase fat. So it leads to obesity or weight gain. So we know that sugar can actually cause you to gain weight, especially because too much excess sugar is stored as triglycerides, and then those triglycerides are stored as fat. And then you guess what? You just start packing on the pounds. So sugar, really technically number 9, number 10, number 8, number 9, number 10, number 2, really kind of all tie into each other, kind of all play into each other and together. Hey, and if you missed the earlier part of this series, click right here so you can go back and get caught up. The information there might be critical to helping you on your path to better health. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe for updates below. Have a great day.